documents that would put lives at risk?
Yo, welcome back to the channel. Let's jump in.
If Jeffrey Epstein never actually died, there's a man going viral right now called Palm Beach Pete. Same neighborhood, same mansion, same private jet, same car, same shirt, same facial lines, same teeth, same speech patterns, even the same stutter.
And some knucklehead films me.
Trading one of the largest frauds.
His name is Peter Simmel, a retired real estate mogul who came out of nowhere with zero online presence. But this is where it gets scary. He's connected to Epstein's relatives on Facebook and attended Syracuse University alongside a confirmed Epstein family member. He admitted to TMZ he lived in New York in 2019, the exact same time as Jeffrey. Said he'd even seen him at parties. He's 71. Epstein would be 73. Do the math. He took a lie detector test to prove he's not Epstein. The results? Inconclusive. And now he's on Jimmy Kimmel. He's got merch. He's got a brand. That's when I knew. This is the distraction. A pressure release valve. So the real Jeffrey, if he's out there, can breathe easy while everyone's focused on Pete. Because now, if you ever see someone who looks just like Epstein, you'll say, oh, that's just another Palm Beach Pete. And that is how you fake your own death. Comment file and I'll send you what was never supposed to go public.
So that one took a turn I wasn't expecting. I thought they were going to say that like Palm Beach Pete was really Epstein, which clearly he's not, unless he's had some serious cosmetic surgery. But they're saying something else, that he's set up to sort of draw attention away from Epstein being really alive, which that's a theory I can get behind. That makes a lot of sense, at least a lot more sense to me. I've seen some pictures, I'm sure a lot of folks have, of a guy in Israel who looks very much like a disheveled Epstein, who hasn't shaved or cut his hair in a while, and he's surrounded by like a team of what looks like a security team, like crossing the street. It looks so much like Epstein. Well, some of the evidence that's come out recently about the chain of events that went down when he died in prison, I think it's quite possible he's still alive, and which makes this argument very plausible in my mind.
So details about Peter Thiel's secret society has been revealed. So the Dialogue Society is a private, invitation-only network co-founded in 2006 by Palantir chairman Thiel. And they hold secret meetings all over the world that are completely off the record, where they obviously talk about technology and finance and how to control our world and building cults, everything. How to control society, just normal everyday stuff. A meeting of the puppeteers of our society. But a directory in the website's code was revealed by a Swiss hacker. The next retreat that they're going to have is actually in Dublin, Ireland, and it's going to have people from all over politics, tech, celebrities, multiple people from the Trump administration, NATO's top U.S. commander. But, some of the very normal things to talk about during the conference that's happening this year is navigating World War III, battlefield technology, money, does it buy happiness, bring back nuclear, build a cult, which is probably the best one that's going to happen this year in my eyes. Because of course you want all kinds of new information on how to build cults in today's age. And that last one is actually going to be moderated by the founder of the Christian networking site Pray.com. But you should get online and look at the members that were exposed in this not so secret society now.
Yeah, I started seeing some stuff on Dialogue, I think yesterday. I mean, this is like really just broke information. Like I think within the last 24, 48 hours of me recording this, Dialogue is the name of the group. Some sort of secret meeting organized by Peter Thiel of various prominent individuals, a lot of different names being thrown around as part of the group. Wild stuff. Some of it seems innocent, and then, like he mentioned, some of it not so innocent. Like one of the discussions was how to start a cult, which, why are powerful, influential, wealthy people talking about that? That's interesting. It's like a secret society, the discovery of secret society right before us. Pretty wild.
In the 1950s, a scientist made a disturbing discovery. The average American had massive amounts of lead inside their body. Some people thought it was normal, but the scientist felt something far more dangerous was happening. He believed giant corporations were knowingly polluting air with toxic lead. But when he tried warning the public, those billion-dollar companies tried to ruin his life. The story began in the 1920s. Car companies discovered that adding lead to gasoline made engines run smoother. They called the new leaded gas ethyl. Car owners loved it. Selling ethyl was incredibly profitable, but there was a serious problem. Lead was toxic. In fact, lead was so toxic that workers in the leaded gas factories suffered hallucinations. Some even passed away from lead poisoning. Lead particles could spread through the air. Simply breathing too much could make people very sick. But the companies did not want to stop producing leaded gasoline. The business was making far too much money, so they refused to accept that lead was poisoning workers.
They knew that it was harmful. They tried to say that that didn't matter. They tried to blame the workers who got sick in their factories.
There was an even bigger issue. Cars using leaded gasoline released fumes that contained the lead. Those fumes dissolved into the air, and anyone who breathed that air also breathed in tiny amounts of lead.
I think this channel is called Mr. Deep Dive, or it could be Visual Venture. I'm not sure exactly which name is which, or it might be the same name. Anyways, go check him out. This is the second or third time we've seen some clips from him, and they're all really, really good, high quality stuff. And I think this is something important to keep in mind. Now, obviously, we're talking about a historical event. It's a factual event. This isn't debated by anyone, I think. And if they are debating it, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So, right, like even your average normie can accept that this is a fact, that these kinds of things happened back then. The argument that most folks will have is that it happened a long time ago and they're not doing it today. But I think it's important, these events are important to be educated on, because it allows you to make arguments about today, right? Because a lot of people will deny this kind of behavior. Companies are still behaving in this way. Like we regulate them, so on and so forth. But we do know for a fact there are instances of the government or whatever putting certain things into our food supply, our water supply, etc. So fluoride is a great example. Now, yes, there's a debate on whether or not that's good for you or not. Whatever, put that to the side. It is happening, and we're aware of it. It's not a secret, and it's not a conspiracy. The debate that's being had is whether or not that's good for us. Point being, you can use these patterns of behavior from the past and try and map them onto today to make arguments and make people see that maybe we shouldn't be so trusting about the government putting something in our water, or allowing private corporations to put certain chemicals in the food. And we say chemicals, we're talking about things like yellow number 5, whatever, right? You go to any other first world country and those chemicals are outlawed. So why is that the case, right? Well, in the past, governments have done this kind of thing, companies rather, in order to reduce costs and increase profit. So what's to say that that's not what's happening today? And they could care less about the health implications, right? So understanding that there are some things in the past that have happened, being educated on them is a really valuable tool to sort of mapping those patterns onto today's environment.
I owe a lot of money to the IRS. Fuck! I owe over $6 million.
Oh, wait.
Last year I owed $6 million. The year before that was $2 million, so I owe 8.
How did it go from $2 million to $4 million the next year?
I'm saying $6 million was last year, $2 million the year before. I owe $8 million in total.
So you don't pay your taxes?
I haven't paid my taxes for 6 years.
So how do you feel
They're not
about
real. If you don't pay them, they're just not real.
Wait, really? So I shouldn't pay this year?
Taxes are a construct. Nobody at home needs to be paying this shit. I learned the hard way. I was paying taxes for about 3 years.
You tell me everything I know.
Tax the billionaires. Well, that's what I'm saying. Tax the rich. Guys like me, I'm a humble dude.
Are you rich though?
I'm super rich.
So tax you.
No, tax the richer.
Yeah,
no,
me and guys like this were worth 20, 30 mil.
Yeah.
I'm worth 55.
Don't
put that in the video.
No, the guys that are like worth $1 billion, that's fucked up.
No way.
That's
But the guys that are multi-million, like those guys are
We're not
chill.
rich.
Tax you.
He makes a lot of money on Hot Topic. I made a few $100 million just doing crypto pump
Yeah.
and
A
dump.
few
Tax the
hundred
rich.
million.
No, I
Oh
don't pay
my God.
taxes. It's not all. It sounds like a lot, but when you actually make taxes, I paid the first 4
And you
years.
couldn't pay the $6 million.
Not this year. I don't have it. I'm not good for it.
So I get what they're implying here, tax discussion and all that stuff aside. I don't want to talk about that. It's not interesting. You want to hear about politics and tax policy and all that stuff, go somewhere else. This is for entertainment purposes. But what they're implying here by showing this is that maybe he was killed because he's been evading taxes. And there's other arguments about, like, Kobe Bryant supposedly won a case against the insurance company for $1 million. Look, guys, is it interesting? Are these coincidences kind of interesting to be aware of and observe and talk about? Sure, but I don't think it's at all likely that that had anything to do with their death. We're talking about a sum of money that's absolutely nothing to the people in power. That insurance company that Kobe got $1 million from, who they could care less about. That's barely a write-off. That isn't even worth, getting out of bed for that company, more than likely. And the same thing can certainly be said about the federal government, who presumably he's owing taxes to. So they could care less about $6 million. They're spending trillions a year. So the idea that this suggests that there was a conspiracy to kill him because he hasn't paid his bills. Also, in the Kobe case, at least it makes sense because he was going to get some money. Although I think whether he's dead or not, he's still getting that money. It was probably paid to his estate, so still doesn't make sense. But in this case, killing him really wouldn't make sense because then he'd never pay the bill back. So doesn't add up.
We have never actually elected a president. The end. Project Abigail was real and covered up as fake. So, Project Abigail was a supposed secret US military experiment that aimed to turn a general's daughter into a super soldier, but instead she mutated into a monstrous creature. Oxygen is actually poison, but it takes decades to kill us. AI is controlled by the government and is keeping tabs on people for the future. Your enemy isn't the left or the right, it's the billionaires. Technology is way more developed than they let us know. Astro World was a satanic ritual. Crazy theory, but what if they tell us that black holes are only going to kill us because it's our escape? There are actually people who can predict the future. I'm dying on this hill.
First off, sorry about the audio on that video. I'll try and fix it when I'm editing, but some of those were fun, and I wanted to keep that in because the soundtrack there was so creepy in the beginning. Great way to set a vibe. But Project Abigail, I've never heard of that before, so that's kind of cool. A new one. Always fun to discover new conspiracies, but never heard of that one. Don't know anything about it. The only other comment I'll make on this one is the billionaires thing. I think that's a good point to make. Like, I know I try to stay away from politics, but conspiracy is so inherently political, especially when you talk about the political ones. That you're going to touch on it to a certain degree. So I do 100% agree. It's not really about right or left. If you're still obsessed with red team versus blue team, like I just, and I'm talking about American politics here. So for everyone who may be in another country, apologies. But red team versus blue team is not really the thing, man. You're missing the whole point. Right? Like, and you can think, yeah, but what about the liberal, or what about MAGA, or what, like, right, I get it. Like, at some point you're going to make a vote, or you're going to have a choice to make, or whatever. That's fine. But in reality, they're on the same team. So understand that you're not really doing anything. At least in my opinion. And I think that it's so clear now that that's the case, that they don't work for you, bro. They don't work for you. So who are they working for? And in this clip, they said it's the billionaires. And I think a better way to put that is it's not the billionaires. The best description I've heard was intergenerational pools of capital. And what we mean by that are we're talking about folks like the Rothschilds. We're talking about folks like the Waltons. We're talking about folks like the Rockefellers, right? The royal family. These families that are institutions. Now you can take that a step further and even talk about industries, companies, who operate in the same sort of fashion, right? And that certainly would be an intergenerational pool of capital, right? Because it exists beyond the employees or the stakeholders, right? Because ownership changes over time. And so that's really what it is. It isn't, Elon Musk or Bill Gates, like, sure, think what you want about them as well. That's fine. But really what it is these pools of intergenerational capital that have been around in some cases for centuries, maybe even longer than that. If you talk about someone like the royal family and other institutions like the royal family, Catholic Church, no offense to the religious folks, Catholics out there, but that would be another body that is an intergenerational pool of capital that are really the most influential forces, I think, behind everything, that are the closest you're going to get to people or groups of people who are pulling the strings and are really in control. And again, they're not on the same team. They often compete with one another. They have competing priorities. It's more like Game of Thrones than a bunch of billionaires smoking cigars and drinking scotch in a dark room coming up with how to steal your money. It's different. That's not the way that it works, I don't think. There are probably elements of that in the sense that there's alliances among these people, cooperation among these people. But one thing to understand, which was the point that this clip was making with that one comment, is it is very much us against them, right? So they may compete with one another over resources, et cetera, but when it comes to anything even remotely existential, i.e. us disrupting their ability to run things, then they 100% will put their differences aside and ally to make sure they maintain their own power and the status quo. And that, I think, is important to understand, because just pointing at billionaires like Elon Musk and Bill Gates is really simplistic, and it's easy argument to tear down, right? And it just makes you look not very well versed or educated.
That Charlie did not die from a 30-06 bullet wound, and that Man of Steel is not going to really cut it as some miraculous explanation. Also, people who believe that he zoomed in on the footage that he showed me, I want to let you know, great work. I think you are correct that he zoomed in on that footage, because it would have showed us more. I think he would have captured a lot more in that footage if we're looking at comparing it to the past events where they suddenly started wanting to get that angle.
I'm stopping this one a little early. We don't need to do the whole deep dive into Candace's theories. I mean, think what you want about her, whatever. Again, she's a rather incendiary figure for a lot of people, so I don't want to go too much of a deep dive into her stuff. Again, not taking a position one way or another. The only reason I really wanted to show this was the comment about the ballistics, right? And put Candace's stuff aside, right? She's just sort of a journalist. There's people who actually know this stuff. Veterans, gun experts, gun manufacturers, hunters, all kinds of people who know guns in and out, firearms, ballistics experts, who have done multiple tests and demonstrated unequivocally that the bullet that hit Charlie Kirk was not, a 30-06, I think was the bullet. That caliber would have done significantly more damage. I mean, I don't know that that's been disproven at this point. So in my mind, any other argument is irrelevant. Like, you have to answer that question. And protected by God, Man of Steel, his bones were so strong, bounced off, that doesn't work. You need a legitimate argument to refute that point. And if you want the mainstream narrative to hold up. And until I hear that, I mean, I have a lot of questions about this one.
Some people don't even know what a conspiracy theory is, and it bugs me to my core. I believe that all religions are correct, and they're all happening at the same time. That's not a conspiracy theory. A theory, maybe. But there's no ploy. There's nothing to conspire about. You need a group of people or someone getting together to make like a false truth. If you then tacked on like, oh, the government knows that all religions are true and they're happening all at the same time. Sure, man. But then you being like, I think reincarnation is real. Not a conspiracy theory. Not a conspiracy theory. I think there's aliens. Okay, unless you're saying that the government or some group of people knows about them and is hiding them and covering them up. Not a conspiracy theory. You're just being like, yeah, I think it's possible that there could be aliens far on the other end of the... Not a conspiracy theory. That is just a theory.
A game theory.
I'm asking what your favorite conspiracy theory is. Don't say one of those.
She's got a point, although I think nowadays, like, we, so much content like this channel, like hers, talk about conspiracy theories, but sort of, or it's broader in scope than that. Sometimes it's just crazy stuff, scary stuff, whatever, right? Like, I don't know that we need to quibble over the definition of conspiracy theory, but she's 100% correct. The meaning of conspiracy theory is a theory about people conspiring. So JFK is a conspiracy theory. Famously, that's where the term became popularized in modern times. So she is 100% correct here, though. From a content perspective, kind of who cares, right? We're all just here to entertain ourselves.
Do you need to distract a mosquito? No. Do you need to distract a fly? No. Do you need to distract a bear? Yes. Do you need to distract a wolf? Yes. Do you need to distract a serial killer? Yes, absolutely, if they're trying to kill you with a chainsaw. So what do all of the things that you need to distract from have in common? That they have an actual clear and present danger to you. The concept of needing to distract people from the Epstein files is based off of the premise that people's attention of the Epstein files is of any consequence. It doesn't matter how mad the goyim get. It doesn't matter how many files get revealed. It doesn't matter how many elites are eating babies. The goyim are just going to keep buying Funko Pops, glitter dumplings, and Pokemon cards. That's what they do. They're not programmed. They're not genetically allowed to understand this. And same thing as it works, it always works. So the idea that like they need to distract from the Epstein files is just such a massive power fantasy that you could only, it's such a massive delusional power fantasy that you could only imagine that it would be invented by a woman. No, you don't need to distract from the Epstein files because nobody cares what you think to begin with. So that's really it. I'm just trying to be honest, okay, guys? Listen, people might not like this, they might not want to hear it, but that's the truth. Are you arguing that events can happen in parallel? No, wrong take, though. It's not. And I know people might not want to hear that because they think that their voices matter. Well, they don't. Your voice doesn't matter.
Yeah, so, again, another controversial figure here, maybe less so than Candace, but, it seems like this guy does get picked on quite a bit as well. That aside, comment was obviously very misogynistic. I don't condone that. Clearly unnecessary to the commentary. That aside, commentary, I think, is really important. I think it is high time that we start recognizing this fact. You don't matter. Your vote doesn't matter. Your opinion doesn't matter. Your tweets don't matter. The documentary you're working on doesn't matter. The book you wrote doesn't matter. You don't have power. They're 100%. They don't need to distract us. Sure, they do bread and circuses and all that stuff, but a lot of that is because they're trying to make money, not because it's a distraction. That's just an added benefit, right? They're not gonna deny that there's a benefit to the distraction, or try and alleviate that benefit, and come out and be super transparent because they don't want you to be distracted by the bread and circus. No, of course they're gonna take their cake and eat it too, but it's just a cherry on top of the sundae. They don't need to distract you. We're not getting the Epstein files. We're not getting the JFK files. The smoking gun, if it exists, they're not going to show it to you. It's not going to happen, folks. It's not going to happen. You already know what's going down. If you have a brain and have done a little bit of research, you already know what's happening. And you don't need the information. So the only question is, what are you going to do about it, right? And we all have to make that decision ourselves. And I know what I'm going to do, and it ain't much. It ain't much. I'm going to keep living my life, keep trying to make money, pay my bills, and live a good life. And it is what it is. But be aware that your tweets aren't doing anything. Your book you're writing doesn't do anything. Raising awareness doesn't do anything. Frankly, VOTEing doesn't do anything. You know, they run the show. They have all the power. They have all the money. They have all the guns. It is what it is, folks. The game is over. The game is over. So just, you know, go live your own life. But yeah, the idea that they need to distract you as if you're going to do anything is crazy. It's absolutely crazy. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? You're not going to do anything. So what are we talking about here? Yeah, they don't need to distract you. He's 100% correct. 100% correct. That being said, that meme is fucking great. I don't know if anyone doesn't know this by now. I'm sure everyone does. That's George. He's got some crazy Greek name, Sokolopoulos or something like that. Very well done. Very well made. Fantastic meme.
You've been hit by a smooth. You've been hit by a smooth. You okay, Annie? You've been hit by, you've been struck by a smooth criminal.
You okay, Annie? You've been hit by, you've been struck by a smooth criminal.
Are you okay, Annie? You've been hit by, you've been struck by a smooth criminal. Are you okay? Are you okay, Annie? You've been hit by, you've been struck by a smooth criminal.
This is another one that keeps going, but the audio on his commentary is absolutely terrible. And I'm honestly not a big fan of this guy's channel. No offense, Mr. Josh Westy. You know, I know you're just a hardworking content creator out there, just like the rest of us. So no offense. A lot of the takes that he's had, I don't think are very good. That being said, this one is super interesting. Yeah, I agree with it 100%. I always have remembered it being struck by. That being said, memory is a wild thing. You know, that's what you always have to keep in mind with the Mandela effect stuff is like, I do listen to the Alien Ant Farm cover more than I listen to the original. So the fact that the cover is struck by may have altered my memory of the original. But God, it feels like it's struck by. And it's not like I haven't heard that original in a long time. I mean, especially right now, he's super popular. Michael Jackson's all over Spotify right now. But and the fact that all the covers are that way, I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. I wonder if that changed it.
According to the Bible, it never rained on this planet until the year 2348 BCE, 4,370 years ago. Or 4,730 years ago, I think. Adam was created in the year, you know, depending on how you take it. The Masoretic text says that he was created in the year 4004 BCE. Other people have it at 4024 BCE. And if you look up and if you can Google or hit chat, the idea that it never raining on this planet in the 4.6 billion years that the standard model says, that hit me kind of strangely. And I began asking questions about that. Is it possible for there never to have been rain on this planet until the year 2348 BCE? They couldn't give me an answer for it, so I started doing research. And I looked into glaciations and ice cores, and the deeper you look into the ice cores, you can go back almost 1.2 million years and you see the same recursive things that's taking place. And in order to have glaciers in those places means you have precipitation. In order to have precipitation, you have a hydrologic system that is functioning. And snow begins as rain initially, and it freezes. So that question right there made me stop. If you look at And mind you, I love, it's not that I don't believe in God, but what we've been taught is not lining up with archaeological truth, archaeological facts. If you look at the tree rings, they don't support the idea of a global flood. It supports the idea of perhaps a regional flood in a given area. But to support a global flood, all of those tree rings, for water to be on the earth for 150 days and everything's crushed underneath it, all the trees would die, so you would see a new growth pattern. But we still see tree rings that goes back 12,000 years. So there was a flood. There's a number of reports for a regional flood, but as far as it being a global flood, that doesn't match according to archaeological facts, according to the glacial facts. So I had to start questioning those things. And remember, we were told that the Bible is the Word of God. And man wrote it, but it was under inspiration. And I was like, well, if I look at 4004 BCE as the starting point for man being here, well, that doesn't match the genealogical records of everyone coming up out of Africa and making their movement through Gobekli Temple. All of these places, they 13,000 years old. Other places showing that mankind has been here at least 300,000 years, or at least 1,000,000 years. So that was a hard thing for me, because I felt like I was losing my religion. But at the same time, I was gaining my common sense that when they began writing about trying to understand what was taking place, they used the best tools that they had available at the time. But those tools, now we have more sensitive instruments, and so we should be using those sensitive instruments and using our common sense and take the stories that we can from these things, but not to, we have to walk away from fairy tales at the end of the day.
I started watching this one just because I was curious what the argument was he was trying to make at first, because I wasn't really following what he was saying. And then it slowly developed, and I got where he was going. And I still I'm a little bit hesitant to talk about this because I don't want to offend anyone out there who's religious. I think faith is a beautiful thing, and I've made the comment before that I think I find myself very jealous of those with faith. I'll caveat that by saying religion is, and I know this is a loaded term, but problematic to a certain extent. I think if you are religious, you have to admit that regardless of what faith you follow, although there may be some like Eastern faiths that, don't necessarily fall into this camp, but I find that unlikely. But regardless of what faith you follow, there is a long, long history of religions being at the forefront of pretty significant atrocities all around the world. And that continues to happen to this day. You only have to look at what's happening in the Middle East right now. And, you may argue that there's more to it than religion, but I do think religion still plays a factor. And it does for many of the folks in that place, in that part of the world, and helps motivate them to continue to sort of disrupt a more normal way of life. So with those caveats out of the way, I do think that this is a valuable point to make, in that if you find yourself compelled by religion, that's fantastic. But when you want to start making arguments to other folks, religious and biblical-based arguments aren't really going to sway anyone who doesn't already believe what you believe, right? So you aren't really accomplishing anything. Maybe you don't care, that's fine. I'm not saying you need to go out there and sway anyone. I'm just saying I see a lot of people, seems like, we've watched some TikToks, I think, this week. People go into biblical arguments. The Bible said that you lost right there immediately, right? Now, you can believe that, that's fine, But if you were trying to make arguments to others to prove your point, you have to ground it in something more objective. And what he's talking about is 100% correct, right? Like and it's not just one thing, right? One piece of evidence contradicted something that the Bible said. No, it's a mountain of evidence that has been gathered over hundreds, centuries, across disciplines, across practices, with advancing technology, and none of it has been broadly disproven. Yes, things change, like what he mentioned, go back contemporarily in our understanding of how old human societies are. That is shifting and evolving, and science does update its thinking, but it's never really been wrong. It's just been growing, right? And as you grow, you expand your understanding of how things work, and science is sort of the same way. So I'm not saying that there aren't issues with science, that it doesn't get things wrong occasionally, but the Bible is not, no disrespect to the text, to the religion, to the faith. Again, utmost respect there. It is not a resource from which you can make legitimate arguments. It's just not. And none of that means that God isn't real, or Jesus didn't exist, or that Jesus is the Son of God, or, whatever you want to say about the other major Abrahamic religions, which I don't really know about. You can always circumvent science with a faith-based argument, right? So science can be the tool of God. And this is one thing that I never understood, why faith based arguments never took this stance. Is like, well, yeah, you know what, science has shown that this, that, and the other, but like Terrence Howard said, they were working with the tools they had available at the time. That is not the exact word of God, in the sense that God himself didn't write it. It was written by man, and that man is fallible, and his interpretation is incorrect at times. And, because of his limited tools, he wasn't able to write the text exactly perfect. But none of that disproves the fact that, God is the supreme power. He created the stars, he created the earth, he created the heavens, he created everything that we've seen and know, and science is the language with which he speaks to us. That's a perfectly, and then you go, well, I can't argue against that. And as someone who isn't very religious, I'm not even going to attempt to argue against that, because there is no real benefit to that. So you can maintain your faith and still live in a science-based world. And we can still engage and have those arguments, right? Because you have that trump card that protects your faith, and then you can engage with the science and the evidence, and we can argue and debate over those things, and we don't need to talk about the religion. And you can keep that and maintain your practice and your faith, and keep those things separate. And so I don't see why there's often contention between science and religion. I don't see why I don't think evolution disproves creationism. Unless you're the stickler for the exact word that was in it. And that to me is goofy. Like, I think what he's saying is perfectly acceptable. That the Bible was an interpretation written by man, and man is fallible. Only God is infallible. Man is fallible. And it's not the perfect word of God because it was funneled through man. And that process allowed errors to arise. And due to that, there's potentially some issues with what's in that book. And so doesn't mean God doesn't exist. God still existed and created humans through the process of evolution. Why can't that be the argument? Never understood that one. Anyways, we're going to end it there. Again, don't mean to be offensive. I hope, I really enjoy talking about these things, and I want to engage with people in the audience, in the comments, as we build this platform out. I want to engage with them in a means with which we can actually engage. And I don't want it to be over religion. One, because I think people will find it offensive, and I don't want to offend them. Two, it becomes very heated. We don't want to go on that. This is for fun. And three, I want to set, a level playing field where we can all sort of engage. And I don't think that religion does that. So Again, don't mean to be offensive, but I think it's an important point to make. Like I said, we'll end there. I've said more than enough. We'll be back next week with another one. Please like, subscribe, comment down below, share this video. Anything you do to help support the channel is tremendously valuable at this stage of the process as we're building this thing out. Thank you for any support for anyone out there. It means the world to me, and we'll be back next week with another one. Thanks.